Fully, here we
Okay.
go.
Then we start in 3, 2, 1. Welcome everybody to Wheel Talk. This is a podcast series where we discuss the most burning questions of urban unicycling. And with us, I today mean Mr. Eli Brill, myself, and Mark Fabian. For those who are not familiar with the last name, Mark is obviously a well-known rider in the unicycling community. Riding for ages, I think like 19 years now. So there's like no way that if you're like into this kind of stuff that you haven't heard of him. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
And every episode we pick a question and we try to see who can persuade the others that their answer to the question is the correct one. And one reminder for everybody, this podcast thing is not like completely our idea, but it is based around a German football channel called Culture Berlin, and we got the idea from there. So just to give some shout outs to them. And also thanks to Yasmin and Marvin for helping us to create the episode, and thanks to who gave the name, Eli?
It was Kyle Alviani.
Yeah.
We had been thinking of a name, and he just like shot one out there 2 seconds after I messaged him, and we really liked it. So
yeah,
Wheel Talk.
Wheel Talk it is. Thanks to Kyle. And with that, let's get into the question for today's episode. Today's question is, what is the urban unicycling nation? Just to give like what that actually means. It could mean different things, but mostly it's about like the influence of the different countries when it comes to like urban unicycling. I think that's a fair way to say it. Just a quick reminder, we like, even like though we use the terms nation and countries probably a lot in this episode, like we do not like mean to like be like political with it, like anything, or just like probably most of the unicyclists that I'm are like probably like a bit anti-nationalist and like not thinking about like nations and borders in the way that we just want to talk about it for the fun, and because I think like most of us got to know like the other unicyclists in urban unicycling and have experienced like the name nations and countries as a way to like get like a different perspective of the world, with like meeting other riders from other regions, getting influences from like just their living style. So like a very positively connotated word, and I think that's what we're gonna use here. Yeah,
in a friendly, competitive manner.
Yes, exactly. And one last thing before we hop into the episode, I almost missed it. The public vote from the last episode. So last episode we discussed what the most iconic unicycling channel was, and Dao, Eli, and me decided objectively that it was a pretty good channel, I think, or didn't it win?
Yeah.
For us three?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And the public vote also shows that. So for the first episode, the audience agrees with us. Let's see how it is this time. And with that, let's get to randomize who will start with their 1-minute statement. If you don't know how the format is working, watch back the first episode. We explain everything in detail there. But everybody of us will now have like flatland qualification style 1 minute to get their most important arguments around. And we all don't know what countries the other ones have. We all have different ones. But okay, I will start. So now you two will see what country I'm giving you. I just have to switch my documents so that I have it here on my phone. All right. Well, okay. Now it should see the timer, right?
All right.
Okay. No, it said something that it was buggy, but no, it's fine, I think. All right. You see the timer? Okay. Somebody
Yeah.
wants to throw me in?
All right, you ready?
Yes.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. You're on.
Hot take. Unicycling is not about training. It's about being gifted. And there's a country so decorated with urban unicyclists that it seems like some kind of god has given this country an ability to create more and better riders than anybody else. And that's probably why Eli Brill on the 31st of March 2017 prayed his loyalty to the godfather of all unicyclists himself, Chris Kovacs. Their church is the Mishkol's factory where they read out of the holy book for to fly. The three archangels, Mark, Mehmet and Aiden, not only bring balance onto the unicycle, not only to the force, but to the whole world. And the holy unicycling spirit is Mr. 1090 side himself, Cornell out. I am not religious nor nationalist in any way, but the stuff I've seen from this country is out of this world. I don't know to which god Usain Bolt prayed before every race, but at least now I know mine. Yes, I do believe in Hungary, the holy ground and the urban unicycling nation. Viva el Trial. Amen.
That was awesome.
Now I understand why you had to mention the political part.
All right. No comments. And we'll. Yes, Mark, you were the second one.
All right.
So we'll just throw you in as well if you're ready.
All right.
Okay, Mark is
I'm
ready.
ready.
Then your time starts in 3, 2, 1, now.
All right. I think the urban unicycling nation is France because they have a very strong representation of all urban unicycle disciplines from the very beginning up until today. And this means that they have awesome brands, they have awesome competitors and legendary videos coming from this country. Just think about one of the most legendary and iconic unicycle brands ever, Cox One, and the person behind it, Yogi. As far as I know it, he created the first 19-inch trials unicycle, which in my opinion is inarguably one of the foundations of urban unicycling. Also, Yogi at the first World Trials Championship got second. The first world champion of street is Xavier Colos, and the first world champion of flatland is Loic Beau, all from France. Then Yogi founded Edit Unicycles, which is now Impact Unicycles, which is a brand still standing today, and they created a lot of flatland styles and tricks as also street styles and other tricks from street and trials styles. Sorry.
All right. No comments on this one, except I liked it. But,
Yeah, well done.
We're not allowed to talk about the content yet.
Right.
And with that, to you, Eli. You feeling ready?
Oh, I'm ready.
The third nation
Let's do
for this
it.
episode. Those will be the 3 countries that the episode is about. So the third country, starting in 3, 2, 1, your time.
All right. As you know, I'm a teacher and it's back to school season, so let's start this with a quiz. Who landed the first crank flip? That was Mike Clark from Washington State. Who was the first to hit a handrail? That was Dan Heaton, the inventor of street, by the way. He's also the first to do rolls. That was from Washington as well. Who was the first to combine rolls with freestyle tricks? That was Spencer Hochberg from California. The first seat whip ever done? Max Schultz from New Mexico. If we're going to talk about countries with legendary Yun histories, you got to talk about the country where urban unicycling first dug its roots. If you haven't gotten to the point yet, I got one more quiz question for you. Get ready? Try to keep up with this. What do all these tricks have in common? Okay. Double flip, triple flip, 180 flip, late flip, hick double flip, tray double flip, fifth flip, sedge flip, 9 flip, 1080 flip, 1080 side flip, out flip, varial flip, full out flip. I'm out of tricks. 1260 side. They're all from the USA.
All right. So we have our 3 countries, Hungary, France, and the USA. Any other countries you want to mention before we talk about those three?
I got one that didn't get a shout out that I think definitely deserves one. Austria, I think for sure has got to be, like somewhere in the conversation. Can I elaborate on that, or do we do that?
Yeah,
later?
we do that now. If you want to,
now is the time.
Yes.
Yeah. I got to go in a little bit on Austria here for a second because right off the bat, obviously you're thinking of the Puhams, right? They are iconic. I think unicycling doesn't look the way it does today without the Puham brothers. Elias, he's like one of the greatest all-arounders of all time. He's probably in the conversation for maybe the best all-arounder. The 2010, 2011 Elias Puham edits, I bet you there are riders today who are very active in the community who are here because of those videos. Like they literally started riding because of them, I bet. Lorenz and Rafi, both two-time world champions. Each of them was a junior world champion and an expert male world champion at Flatlanders. That's, and Rafi changed the game in terms of editing unicycle videos. People still make videos to try to make them look like Rafi's videos. I know unicyclists who pursued video editing as a career because of the influence of Rafi in their life. It's like, he's just had a massive impact. Not to mention just like the Puhams, where they live. I could picture in my mind that spot, and it just feels like a legendary Yun place, because of how many times I've seen it in videos and stuff. And that's just the Puhams. Austria's got a deep bench. I don't know if you guys remember the Resch crew. Yeah. But for a while there was a squad of dudes who used to just do absolutely crazy tricks on like a tennis court. Resch landed his first 1080 and 1080 side apparently within minutes of each other, which is unbelievable. They had a dude who could 1260, and he was like a third stringer, like he was, I can't even remember his name. It was Matthias. No, Marcus. Wait, they have two guys that could. No, is Marcus Hahn?
Is he from Austria? I always thought so, like before my time.
I don't know. I thought he was Swedish, but now that you're saying that, they might have two guys.
No, yeah. Could be.
Yes, Matthias something, but yeah, they the Resch crew, man, they had crazy guys who were all super competitive Flatlanders, and those edits were dope as well.
Nothing.
That's the only that we haven't talked about that I had down.
I have 4 countries, and those are the 3 countries that we have in this episode, and Austria that you just mentioned. So yeah. Nothing to add from my side. That's like the short list I made. Those 4 countries.
Yeah, mine as well.
I don't know whether you have a country that you thought about that we didn't mention yet.
I actually want to double check. I think I also put 4 countries on my list, and I would also like to quickly double check if you're not forgetting anything, or if I am not forgetting anything.
There was one thing I wanted to say about France. I also had France down for.
We talk about France. We will talk about France anyway.
Okay, all right. Well, man, yeah, I'm ready to talk about the other ones.
Yeah, I think we can go ahead.
Okay. So let's start with Hungary because I got selected first. So I maybe that's like obviously the nice thing is that like I'm probably more biased to like the more recent events. But like when I started unicycling, there was like, if you would be like trial street flat, you would have like Hungary was like the trial nation. Like there was like there would have been reasonable to go to EUC, and the podium would all be Hungarian. And then also like, I mean, Chris probably stopped riding a bit earlier before like Cornell was like really good. It could also have been that like the first 2 spots for like flatland were like also Hungarian. So like depending like every discipline you went to, there was like one Hungarian rider that like I grew up with who was like the best. So
yeah, that's true. I mean, there was a time when like we were not the most represented country at like winter UCs and stuff, but we were always like top 3. And like when there is an event we are talking about like a 2.5 day event in Germany, and like the second or third most represented country on that event is Hungary. Like we're traveling there from far away only for like 2.5 days, and then it's only like a 10 million country. And
yeah, that's exactly what I wrote down. 10 million people compared to like France, who has like, I don't know, 60 at least.
Yeah.
And then there's the US with like 300.
Yeah, I was gonna talk the US. Yeah. One thing I gotta talk about, Chris, a little bit. Well, first of all, we have Mark on here. You're one of the first unicycle videos I ever saw that made me think like I need to get one of these. I need this in my life. There's a video of you jumping 100 centimeters on a unicycle. It was a Mark Fabian 100 centimeters side. I thought your first name was Fabian and your last name was what I saw. My friend Pat and I, we used to watch it on repeat. We were just like, man, how does he jump so high? We were doing like a curb, Yeah, that is one of the clips that like got me into it. And then
that's an honor to hear. Thank you.
Well, you said 19 years you've been riding?
Yeah, this is my 20th year. Yeah.
Dude, that is crazy. I was thinking I'm at like 17 now, so I'm getting up.
I mean, that is pretty comparable. But yeah, I remember I managed to confuse a lot of people with that. That was like my first video that we put online that like caught like international attention. And yeah, we managed to confuse a lot of people with that. So because in Hungary, the regular order of putting names is that you first say your family name and then you say your given name. So in Hungary, when I introduce myself, I'll say Fabian Mark instead of Mark Fabian. And since Fabian can also be a given name, it became kind of a confusion. And apparently French people, a lot of my French friends, they still call me Fabian today, but I totally don't mind it. I go with both names. It's fine.
Dude, that is cool. And then the other thing was, okay, so Chris, the only time I ever met him was at Unicon in Italy in 2012. And that was the first time I saw like a god tier flat rider in real life. Like I'd been to NAUCC a couple times and like I knew I was winning those competitions, And then I went to Unicon and I saw Chris ride in person, and I just remember feeling like that big. Like seeing how he never missed a trick. He could save a combo that would have been doomed for me 5 tricks ago. He could catch it, and like he was at the time kind of seemed obsessed with this thing where he would balance on the crank, like the outside of the crank, and he could do it in the middle of a combo for like multiple minutes long standstill after saving a combo, and it completely blew my mind. Like one of my favorite memories ever from unicycling was the night when Kevin Karchner and Chris and I were trying the 12 spins for the first time, and like it was this sweaty little like garage thing, and all three of us. It was the
Perham cellar, no?
It was, where was it?
It was the Perham cellar, right?
No, this was during Unicon. It was a couple days before.
All right.
Yeah, we tried it, and they were getting way closer than I was at the time.
Whoa.
But it was just like this great energy, and I think about it all the time. Chris is like, that guy, he was one of my heroes when I was growing up. I wanted my riding to look just like his. Hungary, they got some.
All right. Just like, we can talk about like results and Marky doing like 10 EUCs in a row, which is like any other discipline. It's unheard of. It's not only about results. Just like Hungary as a country, it's like for me like a definition of the urban unicycling scene, because like you have had 2 summer EUCs that you hosted, which is 3, which is like that spot is so iconic. And then also you have like we've had all the videos we did together in Budapest, and then you have all the DUC events at Aiden's place. This for me is like it's like the essence of like the community also, just like apart from like all the great riders that we spoke of.
And I feel like I'm trying not to be biased here, obviously.
Well,
if
Eli
anyone
put
doesn't
the
know.
US in.
Dude, I really picked the U.S., man.
Right. So yeah, right. So I think one other thing that we must talk about when we talk about unicycling in Hungary is Cinco, which we has I don't think we mentioned Cinco before. So if there's anyone watching who is not familiar, Cinco is basically, it was a 1 or 2 man project of a friend of ours, Jim, who, well, video editing and taking photos was his hobby at a time. We met him in a bike park and we became friends with him, and he started making unicycle videos for fun, and it evolved into something that I believe, like, at least on me, it had a huge effect. Basically, we have been creating videos with Jim for since 2006 until 2014. I think that was the time when we released This Fire. So like a solid 8 years of basically spending most of the weekends of the year with him, shooting photos and videos. And I like to think that, especially at that time, but maybe even today, I think those videos are quite influential, and they inspire, just like Rafi inspired a lot of other people to create videos and to try taking their video making and editing to the next level. I like to think that Jim had the same fact with that.
Yeah,
Right.
that is a great point, man. Those videos are amazing too. The Cinco Chris Shred video where it's like the black and white one. That I think that's from 2007 or something.
That is from 2007. As a matter of fact, that video won the video award at Fluck 2007.
Oh my gosh, dude, that's crazy. That is a fun fact.
I'm very happy that you're making arguments for my case, which I don't have any clue about because I started like unicycling like 8, 9
Have
years
you-
later. So
Yeah,
Right,
the,
right.
the Cinco videos.
yeah, no Cinco, like the name and like the logo and everything, like, but the story behind it, like, probably seen like a small portion of the videos, like,
Man,
as
I
far
mean-
as I hear from Mark saying it now. So
I mean, when
Yeah, those-
when I started preparing for this podcast, I actually reviewed like the videos we created with Jim, and to be honest, I somewhat remembered that we made a lot more videos that we actually did. So when I went to Jim's Vimeo, by the way, we can maybe share a link or something in the description about about the Cinco videos. You can find them on Vimeo. And I remember that we made a lot more than we actually did. But I mean, what we did, I think, is like I'm very proud of those videos still, to be honest.
yeah,
Okay.
dude, those are masterpiece videos for sure.
Yeah, I mean, they are obviously, it's not really like it's Jim's artwork. Why those videos are on the level that they worth mentioning in a podcast like this, like 15 years after they have been created. But yeah, so obviously,
the writing is art as well. That's why we're talking about them, dude. I'm telling you, it's both.
yeah, I mean that time was really great. Like, I mean, talking about like the 2007 2008 era in Hungary, when basically we had Chris, Benny, and me riding, and yeah, it really felt like, we cover completely like this kind of new wave of urban unicycling with streets, flatland, and trials. And I mean, we are talking about, like, we are in 2007, right? Like in 2007, it was before the first ever Flatland World Championship, which was in 2008. And it was just after the first ever Street World Championships, which was 2006. So in these years, it was not obvious that, like, street and flatland unicycling is on the map. When we went to Fluck 2007, which was the European Championship in Denmark, there was no flatland competition there because flatland was not really a proper discipline at that time. It was really just being formed. The first ever flatland competition that I have been to. I don't know if it was the first ever flatland competition in general, but it was the first one I have been to. Was in 2007 at CFM.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Interesting, dude. That's
really interesting stuff. I think we kind of need to continue a bit, but I wanted
Right.
I just wanted to show you one more thing, like just for Eli, this is the meme.
Yeah, I remember.
You remember
Dude, great. Yeah, I remember making that because their style. Do you see like the resemblance between their styles? Like they all have like the like
Yeah.
are like punched kind of back
Yeah.
with the similar banger tricks. Yeah, dude, I remember looking at this and being like,
That was my inspiration for the whole like spiritual,
yeah, dude.
religious.
I was down, yeah.
Because I was like,
Yeah.
if there are like 3 riders that Eli mentions and 2 of them are Hungarian, I could do like a good case around it.
Yeah,
I love it. I love it.
All right. So then let's continue with France. Marky.
All right, let's continue with France.
You want to have something to add?
Yeah, actually, I was not so well prepared with my speech as you guys. I haven't really rehearsed it before, so it was not really fitting on time. So there's a lot more that I would like to share with you guys. So basically, why I think France is the urban unicycling nation is that it's true that many of the first things come from the USA. I would never want to take that away, but many of these things have been perfected in France. I mean, just think about. It's true that like the first ever flatland tricks are coming from Den Heaton and Spencer Hochberg, but still, I think it's inarguable that Xavier Colos and Loic Baud, they had a massive effect on what we call flatland today. And I think they are even for riders who started riding after 2010 or 12, they probably have no idea who these riders are, and they are unaware that these riders' influence is still influencing riding today. I know that flatland, there is a kind of like a new wave in flatland, which is a little bit more technical, a little bit more focused on like highly technical roles. But even just if we check the prelims and the finals at the last Unicon in the USA, I think you can still see like where this sport is originated from. I'm talking about like big tricks in flatland, even though Xavier Colos, of course, we all know that video, the no flip in flat, but even just like that, like how influential that video is still today. So I think when we talk about an urban unicycling nation, I think it's impossible to not mention France. And I'm not only talking about flatland, I also talk about street and trials. Trials, obviously, there's Yogi, there is Tifoy, there is Tompac, there is Gabi Costes, Maxime Cabot, Matt Huet, and the list goes on and on and on. Like I could be naming riders for a long time here, and all these guys have had their own unique style in trials. They all put down their 2 cents, and even today, if you look at, for example, a Yogi or a Tompac video from literally 15 years ago, like it will be jaw dropping. Like literally what they were doing in like 2007, 8, 9, they were really ahead of their time, basically. And once again, not only in trials but also in street. If you think back about the Kukli team videos, for example, Arthur Caron, Matt Hewitt, of course, aforementioned Xavier Colos and Loic Baud. All these guys have been a little bit ahead of their time. And what I'm quite happy to see is that France not only had a very influential and inspirational period of unicycling, like right now I was talking about mainly the time from 2004 to kind of like 2008 or 2010, but even today, France has a very strong representation in most urban unicycling disciplines. which is fantastic. And basically, there is no era from the past 20 years, I think, in urban unicycling from where you can't name at least a couple of, maybe 2 or 3, maybe more, highly influential, highly skilled, highly successful riders from France.
Okay.
Oh, yeah,
got something to add, Eli?
Yeah, dude. Can I add a little bit of what I just wrote down? Okay, so you mentioned like the Kuchli guys, and one of the things I wrote down was like the history of unicycle teams in France. Like there was Kuchli, but at the same time they had like these guys. It was almost like their own like Resh crew. Do you remember Team Rhythm? You remember those guys? Team Rhythm, yeah. Their videos were their video editing. They were not guys who were influenced by Raffi or by Cinco, but their tricks were crazy, dude. It was a perfect like distillation of the French flat style. They did these like short combos with crazy rolls, and they could do like their tricks were sick, man. They were like it was so cool. And even today, the guys who still ride in France, I know a lot of them are on like the Monaster 1 team, right? Like
they do cool. Just come on,
right? Yeah, he just made a video. Yeah, yeah, those guys, like, they just kind of picked up where those other teams left off. So you can kind of trace their history right back through these teams.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean...
And you know, we talked about video quality from Hungary and from Austria, too. And I remember I was listening to a podcast with you, Eli. I think it was with Emil. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But I remember that you mentioned that... So I might be wrong here, so please correct me if I'm wrong with anything. But I remember that you mentioned that, so you created a bunch of videos and then you felt pretty okay with the riding, but you found out that on the forums, the French guys were like, yeah, the riding is nice, but the video editing is not so cool. And then you were like, okay, now I'm going to make a video that the riding is going to be banger, and then the editing is going to be top notch, and then those guys will be pleased. And then that was the video... oh wait, I forgot which video was that you created after that.
Blue Lips.
Blue Lips, right? So yeah, come on, like even you, come on, like you're like,
hey, you get no argument for me. Listen, a lot of my unicycling career could be summed up to me being like competitive against these French riders, dude, like trying to keep up with Adrian, right? Like seeing the stuff Adrian doing and being like, oh my gosh, this dude is like, this guy is still just dropping these bangers. He's been doing this forever. I got to catch up with this guy.
Yeah, you're totally right. I haven't mentioned Adrien Delacroix yet, and I really should have. I mean, just think about him. Like in 2008, he put himself on the unicycle map by landing a front flip from like a 9 or 10 pallet stack, which is already crazy. Then he did, I believe he did the same in a Unicon in New Zealand. And then in 2012, he had an epic flatland final battle with Chris in Brixton, in which Adrian became second. So he became the Vice Pro champion in flatland. But then 10 years later, in 2012, Unicon 20 in Grenoble, he came back and then he took the Flatland World Champion title 10 years ago. 10 years later. I mean, that's something, 10 years apart. He was in the final battle, he got second, and then 10 years later, he went back and then he took first place.
Yeah, I don't know that there was there ever a Unicon that Adrian competed in where he wasn't on the podium. Like the worst I remember him doing is third place in 2014. I think every other time that he wasn't on there, he didn't compete. You can't deny he's like obviously the greatest flatland competitor of all time. And he
was pretty decent in trials too.
I didn't know that. I knew Street was not bad.
Yeah, he did have some early videos in which he also wrote trials, and he's not half bad in trials.
Huh. That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Oh, though there was one other shout out I had to give France before we move on. We talk on this podcast a lot about the unicycle spirit. Yogi literally was the one who coined the phrase unicycle spirit. he was the first one to ever say that. Like he was the one who put words to the feeling we all recognize as unicyclists.
Oh
Like
yeah,
definitely deserve a shout for that.
he's the epitome of unicycle spirit.
Oh yeah.
Okay. I have a quick thing to mention as well before we move on, and I'm quite happy that you didn't mention it. But it's like it doesn't have to do anything with riders or with tricks or anything, but just like thinking about influence in a different way. Okay, I'm gonna give you like 2 words: aller
Oh my god.
Oh,
and stupid flip.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
really
all I
should
have to say. That's like
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for bringing these up. How like you see, guys, like this is what I talk about. Like the French urban unicycling scene is so decorated that I easily flew over these things. And probably now that we are talking about this, probably there are a lot more details, very important ones that should be mentioned. But simply there is so much about French urban unicycling history and present that it's impossible to bring everything up to the table. So yeah, I probably if we continued talking about this, I'm pretty sure we would find a lot more key elements of urban unicycling, like aller and stupid flip.
Yeah. Oh, that is a great point, dude. I didn't even think about that.
okay.
That's awesome.
I think
All right.
we are a bit late on the time, so we're
We'll
gonna hop
take this
quickly
one.
to the US.
Yeah, let's talk about the US. See, I feel like my brand in unicycling has become like I'm an MBD guy. I'm a tricks guy. I really like thinking about who does tricks first and stuff. Like that's just where I'm at with this whole thing. And when I was thinking about which country has the biggest influence, I recognize France for what they've done for Flatland for sure. Like the style comes from France. But when we get to like right down to the base of where this stuff came from, these US riders from back in the day, I'm talking 2006, 2007 era, like Sean Johannesson was my Mimo Seedler when I was growing up. Like he was so far ahead of everyone in street that it's hard to describe. Like you have a guy who lands the first crank flip, Mike Clark, and then from that, Sean Johannesson just creates this web of tricks. Like how many riders today even know that the name Sej Flip, SEJ, that stands for Sean Eric Johannesson? He named it after himself. I asked some guys at Unicon that, and the younger guys were just like, I don't know, it looks like 7, But this guy, like, all of those like baseline level tricks that we just kind of take for granted now because we've learned that there's like beginner level things. They came from this guy at a time when people thought that nothing was possible on a unicycle. Their unicycles were exploding, doing a tire grab down a 4-set. And this dude's doing 5th flips. It's like when I think back on it, it's just it's hard for me not to recognize the U.S. as like the birthplace of all the things we know and love. And there's one other thing I did that I mentioned him briefly, but I think the GOAT unicyclist, like literally the greatest of all time, is Max Schultz. You cannot think about unicycling without talking about Max Schultz. He is unbelievably good at unicycling, at everything. Every discipline you can think of, like his trials is just, it's off the charts. Mark, I'm sure you can attest to how good Max is at trials. His precision is incredible. He's just, he's a monster. And his street riding, he's like Adrian in street. Like he didn't win all the street competitions, but anytime Max has ever competed in a street contest, he's been on the podium. I'm sure of it, except for the most recent Unicon, but or his ACL or something. Like he's in his 30s and he was still in the finals. So I just think there are so many like influential guys from here. And you got to give him a shout.
Marky, you have something to add?
Yeah, that's fair enough. And I think another thing we must mention when we talk about US is also videos, and not just videos, but also DVDs. Like half of Defect, for example, is basically riders from the US. And for instance, that I remember when I was like Ryan Atkins has been my favorite trials rider when I started. Besides Yogi, of course, like Yogi will always be there, but Ryan obviously with the big jumps and the precision and everything. But I remember when I saw Defect, and then I saw Zach Baldwin's part in Defect. It basically blew my mind. Like it just opened a whole new dimension that you can ride trials so in such a clean and precise and like speedy manner. That was fantastic. And by the way, Zach Baldwin won the first ever Trials World Championship. So when Yogi was second in overall category, Zach Baldwin actually won first place. So in trials, he took that. And well, also first Unicon happened in US. Another thing that we must mention, and of course IUF, the International Unicycling Federation, is also registered in the US. And of course Unicon and IUF is not strictly urban, but obviously they are still a big part of it. And though maybe one thing that we should clear about this question, because I think it's a little funny, is that so most of the countries we talked about, Hungary, France, and the USA, they have a very inspirational and very strong history in urban unicycling. But the question is, like, if we look at the present of urban unicycling in these countries, then what do we see these days?
Yeah, good thing to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Although the question is, which nation is the urban unicycling nation? So
yeah, like maybe I can add a bit to that, because like I'm probably more from like the present than you were talking about. And
did you say I'm past?
Yeah, like I only know like half of the people that you just mentioned, but still there are like a lot more people than I can talk about too, that have been from the US and that have been like influential to me and like to when I started riding. And like for example, Scotty, like he dropped his like first real video. I don't know whether you remember his like first video, where he was like 12 years old and dropping like a 5-minute video. That was like 2 weeks after I started riding. That was like the first video that Ian showed to me, and was like, look at this guy. And I was like, dang, there's like a 12-year-old doing 540 secret sides. So like there are more and more riders. Like I've watched a ton of like US videos. I feel like they have like a very strong like video culture that I got influenced by. So it's like, it does not only stretch like from the very beginning, as Mark was talking, but like also was quite influential for me as a rider who started like way later. So yeah, I think that's what I have to say about it.
Yeah, actually, one more thing that you just reminded me that it has to be mentioned. We talked about Sean Johansson, and we talked about important videos from Hungary and from Austria and from France as well. I think we must take a moment and we have to remember like Sean's flip vid, for instance, and like that basically Sean had a period of time when he was like he created videos like on maybe a weekly basis. You remember we are talking about like 2006-7 when I basically I think Sean, like he almost every time I went on the forum, Sean would have a new thread with a new video, you know, and those are also videos like, well, you don't really find them on the internet anymore, but if you watch FlipVid or FlipVid 2, they are still there.
Yeah, those videos are awesome. Sean was like the first. I mean, if we're talking about urban riders, like forgetting Chris Holm for a minute, the first urban unicyclist to be living any sort of like rock star lifestyle type of experience from urban riding was for sure Sean Johansson. Like they were flying him to do fashion shows and stuff. He was doing commercials in South America. Like these companies were literally flying him around to film him doing unicycle tricks because they'd seen his YouTube videos. Yeah, I mean, Sean's videos were some of the first ones I saw as well. They're from, you know, that the era right before I got into it, where I was like, all right, I got to try this. And I know it's the same for a lot of riders who are my age. He was the guy.
All right. I think we had like a very like in-depth chat, like very historical. I'm like very grateful for from what you've shared that I like didn't know about yet. But I think now's the time. If you don't have like any very important point to add to either of those three countries that we just mentioned, just to make sure again that you followed along, all the all the listeners. We have Hungary, we have France, and we have the US. And we're now going to decide who is the urban unicycling nation. That's what we're trying to discuss. It works like that. I was selected first, so I will start with voting, and my choice is either between Marky's or Eli's country, so I can either vote France or the US. And then the vote will continue to the person who just got voted by me. And afterwards, the third person, you only have one vote and you cannot vote for your own country.
You mean the one that you chose?
Yes, exactly. So you cannot vote for France, unfortunately.
Right.
So okay, so it's a really hard decision for me, mainly because Eli and Mark, you pointed out some stuff that some riders, and you're talking about stories that I didn't know before. So it was like definitely a learning experience for me, this episode, but that also like makes it hard for me to vote. Because like I knew it before, but like there is so much stuff in unicycling history that I don't know about, just because I wasn't there. And this is, I think, why I'm just gonna go with my feeling, and I'm gonna select France for the unicycling nation, because I think for me it has had a lot of impact. Even though I probably more riders from the US that I grew up with than from France, but like still, I think the influence just like on the scene, just like the vibe when you go to an event. Without France, it wouldn't be there. You, Eli and Mark, you've been talking about the roles. I think there is I took a ton of influence from this one, just like those basic roles, and then trying to create something fancy with it. I have to go with France on that one.
All right, so I'm up next. So I'm gonna start by stating that, in my opinion, Jan had the best presentation in the beginning. I seriously loved it. I can't wait to rewatch the podcast, to listen to that again. It was fantastic. And, it was very flattening to me being kind of part of that history. And I really appreciate how much he dug into the history of the unicycling culture in Hungary. It was very convincing. But I'm gonna vote to the USA for two main reasons. First of all is that I don't want to be biased. Of course, I would be biased if I would vote for Hungary. After all, I'm Hungarian. I'm part of the Hungarian unicycle community, of the culture, the legacy, etc. So I wouldn't feel right, with voting for my own ground. I would feel very biased if I voted to Hungary. But once again, I think Jan's presentation and the whole thing that he prepared was fantastic, and he had very fair points in his argument. So I gotta admit that. And second of all, is that while I totally agree, well, once again, as being part of that I think that Hungary played a key role in the improvement of urban unicycling. I would like to think that I managed to help push that a little bit forward as well. And and that I could be part of that legacy in Hungarian unicycling. But I must admit, though, that in Hungary we basically had like 2 or 3 generations of these riders, like basically starting with Chris, Benny, and myself, and then we had another wave of extremely good riders like Christoph Horvath, Aiden Teleki, Cornel Alt, and I could name a couple more riders here. But basically we are talking about 2 or 3 generations of riders here. And if I compare it to the US, where I feel like the legacy of urban unicycling in the States, it expands through multiple generations. And I gotta admit that is something that we gotta appreciate here. So yeah, for these 2 main reasons, I'm gonna vote for the USA.
All right, so I guess I'm the tiebreaker this time around. Obviously, I have no problem with my personal bias. I voted for my home country proudly. I guess it would have been maybe a little un-American if I didn't vote for the USA, actually. But unfortunately, that is not one of my options. So I gotta really think about this. Both of you guys made some really convincing cases, and at first I thought, man, I thought this would be easier than what it is. Despite the influence that Hungarian riders have had on me, like I mentioned, Mark being one of the first unicyclists I ever saw, and Chris just having such a huge impact on what I wanted my riding to look like, I really do think I have to go with France on this one, just because of the overall influence that they've had on the unicycle community, and the fact that they still have so many competitive guys in the modern era after just having for so many years been a dominant force in the urban unicycling scene in Flatland in particular, which is obviously my specialty. It's undeniable. They just have urban unicycling takes so much of its culture from what the French riders have brought to the table that I really do think they are the unicycling country.
And there we have it. France is the unicycling nation. Sorry for the technical difficulties on this episode. We're very sorry for that. We hope to bring you some better quality next time. And that being said, thank you so much, Marky, for being here. Thanks, Eli, for being here as well this time. And we also thank Yasmin, Marvin, and Carl for the name. We Talk episode 2 is now done. You have 3 things to do. You can comment when... you have 3 things to do. If you want to take part in the public vote, because you think, I want my voice to be heard, which of the 3 countries that we mentioned in the episode is your urban unicycling nation, then please go ahead and vote for that in the comments. If you want to have any questions answered, please feel free to give us some ideas in the comment section as well. And if you want to take part in one of the episodes, then also please comment, maybe also with the question you want to answer together with us. That being said, this was Wheel Talk episode 2. Sorry again for the technical difficulties. And the urban unicycling nation is France.